Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Actsafe Injury Prevention Week's special presentation of What Would Dawn Do? And this time we are featuring Anand Kanna joining Dawn in this webinar. My name is Manu Nelutla, and I'll be your moderator for this session. I'm also extremely happy to introduce you to two of my wonderful colleagues here, Don Parman and Anand Kanna. Don Parman, as most of you know, is the manager of for performing arts and live events programs and services, whereas Anand Khanna is the manager for motion picture and television programs and services. Both are excellent safety professionals with extensive industry experience. You all have already been familiar with our virtual sessions, What Would Dawn Do? Which we have started since the pandemic in order to support the performing arts industry. And today, Dawn is joined by Anand Khanna. This is going to be an extremely informative. And now I turn the things over to Dawn and Anand to start this session. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you very much, Manu. I'm going to actually hand it over to Anand for a minute, and we're going to talk a little bit about, he's going to get us started with some rules and just some changes that we're going to have for this week. So Anand, go ahead.
I wouldn't necessarily call them rules.
Sorry, rules is the wrong thing. Yes.
Just something, if you've attended any of the other AIP week sessions this week, you might be familiar with some of these things, and then we're going to actually throw them all out the window. In the past sessions, we have held all of the cameras off and audio off, and channeled all of the comments and questions into the chat. We're going to go with the traditional "What Would Dawn Do" format and open up the chat and the camera so you can all see each other, you can all hear each other. If you do not want to be seen or heard, feel free to switch off your camera and put yourselves on mute. But we want this session to be more of a discussion, a town hall type of feel, discussing our experiences in our industries and how we cope with the challenges presented to our mental health. So video's on, microphones are on, chat is also on if you wanna post something in the chat privately to any of the moderators. Manu, myself, Dawn, and Jennifer Lane will be monitoring the chat as well. So you can send us things in confidence if you want us to bring something up. We won't identify who you are, those types of things. Other than that, yeah, let's really dig into this, and we'll get started with Mr. Parman.
I've also put my cell number into the chat, so if you want to send me something privately via text message, we can do that as well, which has been handy in previous sessions. We are also recording this session, which we don't normally do, and we are live on Facebook. So we'll see if some people pick this up and run with it and join us from other locations. One other thing I just want to touch on. I know there's going to be several people that are here that are probably really itching to talk about the changes in the mass gathering order that came down last week. I've talked about it in a few other venues. We're not going to do that today for a couple of reasons. One, we want to focus on mental wellness today and talk about some experiences, and we want to share some resources there. But also, Will and I are knee deep in trying to get details on some of the changes. So we kind of felt it would be better to put that off till next week, and then we can really dig into that next week. And hopefully we'll have some more information for everybody as far as what actually the ministry was thinking when they when they put in those changes. The other thing to remind you all is next week, Mr. Eric Stewart will be joining us on What Would Dawn Do? So I'm super excited. We're gonna have somebody from the UK joining us and talking about his experience as well. He actually wanted to join us today, but he is actually right now having his knee replaced. So he can't join us. He wanted to talk a little bit about the mental health work they're doing in the UK as well, around addiction support and industry support in the mental health realm. So he does send his regrets for today. So the big thing we wanted to talk about today is we wanted to open up the floor and talk about some of our experiences, some of the things we've seen, some of the things we've done in order to help with mental wellness in the workplace. We know that this has been a long-standing issue for our industry. And if anybody wants to share a story, what am I looking at, buddy? Yeah. Two cameras at once. That's Tom Heemskirk, everybody. And just so you all know, I am live on stage at the McPherson Playhouse in Victoria. So I'm actually in a theater. I'm super happy. You can see, those of you who can see way up there's the Actsafe Gobo. Mini-Me is back in action. Super happy about that too. So let's get the ball rolling. Does anybody have any experiences they want to share? Any tools or programs they've used that they think would be valuable for this group to talk about? And any specific tactics you've used in the past to help with mental wellness. And in large part, I'd love to know what you're doing during this pandemic to keep yourself in a healthy state of mind. Does anybody want to go first? So otherwise, you're going to hear me talking a whole bunch. And you can just put your hand up in the screen. I don't know, did we get the raise hand feature working in the chat?
No, it doesn't seem to be there for some weird reason. I'm not too sure why, because it's been there all week. But oh, there it is. Mike can do it.
Mike can do it. Mr. Cooper, did you want
Maybe
to go?
maybe as co-hosts we can't do it.
No, maybe. I see Ben Burrows got his hand up. And if you're going to speak, let us know who you are, maybe what organization you're with, would be good to know. Ben, did you want to go?
Ben was just testing.
Ben was just testing.
Ben was just testing.
Okay.
I can start from the motion picture side of things, and something that I did to deal with my own mental health. And this might turn into a bit of a story, a journey to get to where I want to get to. And I will start by going to the end. Change your job position. Change what you do in life to help your mental health. And here's how my story, where my story starts. As a young lad in the motion picture industry back in 1990, this is probably about 1999, 2000. I was an assistant locations manager on a locally shot television production. Very first time I'd stepped into the role of a supervisor, and was not prepared for the stress that that position brought. And there was a lot of bullying and harassment being in that position as well. Being a visible minority in a supervisory position did not bode well with some members of the production community. At the time, I was one of a very few South Asian people in the film community in Vancouver. But you know, I dealt with that all my life. But what really came to a head was the constant bullying, not so much on the racism level, but more of the calculated undermining of my job from certain members. So of the gaffers and the key grip specifically on this production were kind of teaming up to make me look bad and kind of throw me under the bus. Why? I want to put a light in that yard over there. Why do we not have this one lane of traffic? Because this is where we always put lights in this lane of traffic. I need this lane of traffic. Well, if you're familiar with film production, this is stuff that is discussed on a tech survey, not on the day when we're actually filming. However, none of it was ever discussed on the tech survey. None of it was ever brought to my attention, so no arrangements were made. And this happened on a consistent basis over the course of this season of filming. And it culminated, and it really kind of turned my brain onto what I needed to do when one morning I woke up and my wife kind of looked at me and said, "Do you remember talking to me last night in your sleep?" And I said, "Oh God, what did I say? And what did I do now? What happened? What did I say?" She said, "You called me a stupid MF, and I've got to start talking to you if I want things done on the day, if I want certain arrangements made for my equipment, I need to start communicating that well before, and you tore a strip off me in your sleep." And I was like, wow, isn't that an interesting way of stress manifesting itself? So I took a long time to think about it, and this is where the change in career part of it started. Now, I'm not saying you have to get rid of your life in entertainment production. Maybe a little bit of an adjustment. Maybe not. There's other ways of handling it. So what I did at that point, I decided that I would never assistant location manage on set again. I was done with on set life. And I took a step back and I'd let my location manager know, this is, you know what, done a season of this. I don't think I'm the right person to be on set. It's just not what I want to do. I put on a lot of weight over the course of that season. I was obviously super stressed. And I took a step back and I said, okay, I don't mind being that location scout and that support person for the production, but I'm not interested in going to set anymore. And my locations manager said, okay, fine, I can take that. You do realize you're gonna lose a bit of pay in this case. I said, you know what? Money isn't everything. If I don't have my sanity, if I don't have my mental health, if I don't have my relationship with my family, what's the point? And that's a decision I made. I took a step back. I still had I would call it a successful career in motion picture production. I had a great time after that. The stress levels went down, and I'd say it worked out best for me. Might not work out best for you all. But I wanted to share that story with you as kind of an option, you know, and it might sound harsh, try and find a new career or trying to find a new path in your career. I'll leave that on the table for you guys to discuss.
Not uncommon. We've heard of lots of people shifting roles, even within just departments, in order to adjust that. What's that thing that Manu keeps saying? Work-life balance, I think, is that I hear a fair bit. So that's a really valuable story. I think a lot of us have made choices around that. I'm now at Actsafe. That was a choice for me. I made that choice a while back for a multitude of reasons. Part of my reason for being here is that I felt I could make a lifestyle change and still contribute to the industry, which I think has worked out fairly well. So that was also part of my journey, was making the change into joining Actsafe. And it's been, I have no regrets on that front at all. Anybody else want to share their story? Krista's giggling away in the background. Okay, so I'm going to tell a little bit more of mine then. So those of you who read the article that I posted in Safety Scene recently will know that I've suffered from a series of mental wellness setbacks over the course of my life. But the big one of the biggest ones was I was physically assaulted outside of a 7-Eleven in Nanaimo in 1995. And I was knocked unconscious. I was curb stomped. They kicked my head into the curb of a sidewalk, knocked me unconscious, went to the hospital, the whole 9 yards. I was out for about an hour. I was unconscious for about an hour, the whole 9 yards. And the lingering effects to that. So earlier in AIP week, we had Philip Saucier from SportsMed BC talking about concussions. And him and I have had a long series of conversations since we started working on concussion protocols for the live event and motion picture industry. Very, very revealing. And for me, it was a really interesting experiment and I could start identifying the symptoms that I've carried with me for years afterwards. So in 1995, when my incident happened, I was only in the hospital for 4.5 hours before they sent me home. There was no follow-up from the medical system whatsoever, one x-ray, absolutely no counseling following the violent act that happened to me. And over the years, there was absolutely no follow-up on the concussion. So, you know, spin ahead 15, 20 years, I started when I was really at the worst of my mental health issues. I went to a neurologist and he sent me in for CAT scans and MRIs and did all this work. And the scarring in my brain was really quite significant. And we wouldn't have known had I not gone in for that help. And it took probably better part of 3 months to go through that system and get them to actually act on it, which in the end helped with a whole bunch of different things, along with counseling and a bunch of other things that we did to kind of strengthen that whole process. Helped a lot. And so, and as part of that, later in the process, I switched gigs, so I wasn't doing quite so many crazy hours. Yes, what I do now is not crazy hours. I'm looking at Manu and Jen, so they're just like, you're nuts. But this is actually quite relaxed compared to what I used to do. So those were all bits of my journey Some of the things that I've run into, and some of you will have seen me talk about this on Facebook or LinkedIn a little bit, or at other sessions that I've been a panelist on several other conferences and events where we've talked about this. One of my major frustrations is the access to care. And that's been even employee assistance programs are thin. So, and I don't know if anybody else has these experiences, but it's been really super frustrating trying to get access to care. And I've had this conversation with multiple other people in the industry, male, female, people of color, people from different backgrounds, are all experiencing the same thing. They're having a really hard time getting access to that care. So not that I'm saying we'll find a solution to it here, but it would be a really key piece that I would love to see some more support on that front for people that are reaching out for that care. Myself, I tried to do it in advance before anything really terrible happened. Not that I'm saying it would have, but you know, I saw things happening that I wanted to take care of, but reaching out early on, it was really hard, really, really hard. And there were key people in the industry that helped me through it. And I'm so thankful for them for doing that. And of course, for me, the biggest person I have to thank is my wife, Stacy. I tried to get her to come on today, but she refused because she's something about having to work. But she's really been my rock and helped me through all that stuff. So yeah, that's my story. There's a lot more to it, which I'm happy to talk about over a beer. I won't do it publicly here, but there's other bits and pieces to the story that contribute to all of that. Some of you have heard it before. Some of you know those pieces of my life. But the biggest thing for me now is talking about it, right? So that whole, the Bell Let's Chat thing about talking about mental health and mental wellness and the experiences we have. And that's my hope that sessions like this can help with that. I know What Would Dawn Do has been a little bit of a vehicle for that, for people to be able to talk a little bit more about what they're experiencing and bounce ideas off people. One of the other tools that's turned out to be quite helpful is I run Wing Night on Thursday nights, and it's just a social group for a bunch of us to just, you know, chat. And it's open every Thursday. Friends drop in, come in and out, and we can talk, you know, how are you doing? What's going on? The other really important thing that I found value in during the pandemic has been just calling people. Right? Like, I mean, I know Mike Cooper and I have talked about this a few times where we've been like, you know, phoning our friends that we haven't talked to in a while. We've got friends that are kind of on the fringe of the industry that have kind of semi-retired or moved on to other things. How are they doing? And that's a really important piece. I'm super lucky right now because I'm part of so many Zoom meetings that I get to touch base with a lot of the people that are in this call right now. We get to touch base every couple of weeks, which is really good. So that's also been a really powerful tool for me anyways. And I know that's helped with my mental wellness through this whole process. So all bits and pieces of the puzzle that we can use moving forward. Who else has got a story? Again, we can talk about anything you want to do with mental wellness. Tools you've, you know, programs you've put in place, tools you've used, conversations you've had, anything you think that would help or be valuable for anybody in the group to talk about. Anybody? Krista Pavane.
Hey, Don. I appreciate you really sharing your story, because the one thing that I find is that I carry like this weight of responsibility. I carry this weight of needing to feel like I'm the grounded one and the reliable one for my crew and the rest of my coworkers. And so one of the things I've been deliberately doing is saying, trying to make sure that people know that I also have days that are hard and days where I'm like, oh my God, there's no way I can get through this, so that they can see that all of us at different levels still go through those experiences.
Yeah, super important. And one of the ones I struggle with is saying I'm not okay. Because everybody asks you every time you see somebody, how you doing? How's it going? Right? And there's different levels of comfort with different people that you hang out with or work with or different relationships. There are certain people that I'm totally comfortable going, yeah, not good. Today is not a good day. And there's a few of them in this meeting right now that have heard that from me more than once, especially over the last few months. So I think that there's a really, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. Right, Coop? Yeah. So, and Coop and I have had those moments over the years where we've shared some of those experiences, you know, on shows and different things. So, and again, you know, Krista, Coop, their family for me, right? So it's important to share. And I think we kind of have to get past that a little bit. If we're going to actually be able to be honest and supportive, we need to know when people aren't doing well. And that's hard. That's really hard. For some of us, it's harder than others. But my kids have a way less struggle with expressing that than I do. And I think that's partially because of the environment that they've been raised in. You know, myself and my wife, the example we've led, but also the system they've been raised in is different. They're more comfortable talking about that stuff, which is great. Anybody
Miles
else?
might want to have, he's unmuted himself. Miles, am I jumping the gun and saying that you want to contribute?
No, it's okay. I will contribute. Yeah, no, I was going to say what we do, we started it right away early on with all my crew guys. Once a week we get together. We've kind of made it kind of formal. Like you got to drop what you're doing and get on this little call. It can be really informal. It can be really, if we have business stuff to discuss about our recalls, about stuff like that, we do talk about that. And we always just have time, like you say, just have social touch. And because we always were such a tight group anyway, talking every day, getting together almost every day, now we can still do that at least once a week. I find it's really, really good for me to stay in touch with them and to get all their different viewpoints on what they're doing and some of the younger, you know, in my case, some of the younger guys, what they're doing, what people are doing. And it can be really funny some weeks, and some weeks it's not funny, but it sure is valuable just to make sure you stay in touch with people. And I'm also trying to just go through my own contacts and stay in touch with people that I do see regularly, but that I haven't been, like Tom, my piano tuner, that I usually see so many times. And now, you know, the last week I haven't talked to Tom for so long, so I just connect with these people that professionally are friends. They're both in our industry so many times. It's a very blurred line. So I think we just have to really find ways and use this technology to stay in touch. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Miles. I'm sure in the chat, John, if you haven't seen John's comment in the chat, physical exercise every day is really key, and you kind of underestimate how true and how real that is. And for me, and I know Jen and Manu have heard me for the past 45 minutes in the office complaining about yesterday's soccer practice. Well, yesterday I coach my son's soccer team, and it was the first time back on the field since before the pandemic, basically a conference weekend. So being out in the driving pouring rain, and you don't realize how hard rain is on your head until you don't have hair. But just being out there and running around with the kids and getting that little bit of physical exercise, I got home and I was soaked to the core, had to peel socks off of me. And if you, I think I remember what movie it was, but you remember that scene where somebody peels their sock off and they throw it against the wall and it kind of sticks to the wall. That was my sock. That was me to the core. But I felt so good after that bit of physical exercise yesterday. It was as if, and I don't know if I realized it, but there was this fog in my brain that had lifted. And just like I said, being out and running around for an hour was so therapeutic for me. So yeah, John, thanks for that in the chat.
And the last bit of John says, he says, I'm in my running gear and I'll go for a run as soon as this webinar is over, and I'm 74 years old. So thank you for sharing that, John. That is awesome. I absolutely love that. And I see Mr. Cooper has his hands up.
Yeah, I was just going to sort of touch base there, the same as what Miles and John and Anand said. Like here at the Port Theatre, as soon as we locked the doors in March, we right away as a tech department started a D&D Zoom every week to maintain the social aspect. And some of us had never played D&D before. And so it was just that weekly social interaction between the fellow coworkers really helped. And as John and Anand said, I'm all for the physical aspect too. I've definitely had some rough weeks over the last 6 months, and my mountain bike and getting lost in the forests outside of Nanaimo has really helped. So yeah, definitely agreeing on those points.
And making me cry on mountain bike rides when I'm over there was also very, very, very helpful. Yes.
We'll get you there, Don. You're busy working, you know.
Yeah. So that's great. The physical exercise thing, although you'll never be able to tell by my physical shape, I've been riding, and I started riding probably mid-June. The first part of the pandemic, part of my pandemic therapy was I rebuilt all my bikes, 2 mountain bikes and a motorbike. I rebuilt them in my shop as a way to keep myself engaged, and then I made a vow to myself to ride. So I've put close to 600 kilometers on my mountain bike over the summer, and I've put 2,500-3,000 on my motorbike, most of that off road. So all part of my plan to keep myself engaged, motivated, and not focused on the really ugly stuff that's going on, right? So that's part of that whole thing. Anybody else want to share? Okay, so I'll tell you about a couple of other things that have been going on across the country. So I know that there's a group of about 15 technicians, technical directors, production managers, other members of the community in Calgary, and they do a game night similar to what Coop was talking about. So it unfortunately is in direct competition with Wing Night. So we lose a few of them to Settlers of Catan or a Risk tournament every week. So, but I'm all for that. That's all good. There's another group that I'm involved with in Toronto, which is called Therapy. And I've been welcomed into that group through some of the work I've done through PMTD Arts and some of the work I've done in Toronto and through CITT. So they meet once a week as well, which is great. So I get to stay in touch with a bunch of my Toronto friends. And there's a few West Coasters that have migrated out that way that are part of that group. Another one is CITT does, I think they're doing every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks, they're doing a member check-in, which is kind of similar to this. It's kind of an open forum place for people to talk, chat, and catch up. That's been good as well. So keep an eye out for those. There's several organizations that are running these things. If you want to get involved, if you're looking for some, drop me a line. I can always hook you up with a couple of other people that are doing something. And the other thing I'll leave open to everybody is if we want to set up another informal event, let me know. I'm happy to do it. That might be more inclusive or involve different people. Wing Night's kind of a group of us that all work together over the years, but we've even opened that up a fair bit to other people to join us. So those have been really good connections. As things started to open up a little bit, we've had gone out with a couple people here and there. In Victoria, I've been able to, have dinner with a couple of people or go out for coffee, which is good. Last night, we got into a really intense conversation here about the role of vegetables and clearing the fog in your head. It was very good. So Will and I got to chat with a few people about, dietary needs, which was super fun. And then to clear my head, we walked back to the hotel across downtown Victoria, and what did you say, Will? It was a brisk walk. It was a brisk walk. So it was dawn paced. So also tools that I've been using to try to keep myself in a good, clear head. Anybody else? Come on, there's got to be more stories out there. Krista? Oh no, sorry. Let's go to Matt Smith first. His hand did go up just a little bit quicker. Matt, go ahead, brother.
A moment earlier.
Fraction.
So I guess kind of going off of what Anand said as well as Dawn, I think something, it doesn't really apply during the pandemic here over the last few months, but like a big change that I made in my life. When I first got into this industry, I definitely worked with some people that made my life really difficult on a day-to-day, week-to-week, yearly basis. And, sometimes obviously confronting those people can work. Having a support system around you, people that kind of deal with the same situations can help as well. At some point, what ended up really doing the most for me, regardless of all of the, informal maybe support that was available, was really getting away from it. And it's not always easy. It was incredibly difficult. It was years and years of my life that it took for me to finally make the change. But, taking that step, as difficult as it can be, was probably one of the most rewarding things in my life. So, I've seen the same thing with my wife working in a place that was toxic. And, regardless of how much people sometimes say, I don't see it that way, or saying something it's always been like this. Things like that are incredibly difficult to kind of change, you know, like changing a culture. Being one person can be very challenging. And, you know, if it resorts to it, I mean, I've always kind of been taught to never run away from a problem, but there are certain times where I think that that's really what needs to happen. I mean, I'm lucky to have found myself in a position now where mental health does take a forefront, where, you know, there are opportunities to have some sort of like consultation, to have more of a process to determine if, you know, if you're being discriminated against, or if you're even discriminating against someone, or if you're making someone feel bad in the way that you discuss things with them. You know, that's something that's abundant in my current workplace. So, I mean, I'm lucky for that. I know everyone doesn't have it, because I spent a lot of my time not having anything like that. But I think things like this, like just talking about it, obviously, like I'm kind of saying that I did something and moved away from a problem and now everything's good, isn't really a solution that everyone will have.
Yeah.
But it is something to kind of keep in mind, you know, if you are encountering something, or if you have staff that you know they don't get along, kind of trying to do these little things to help is definitely worthwhile. But at the same time, you kind of have to know when to kind of like cut the cord and really make everyone's life a little better. So just kind of leading on to some of the earlier conversation, and it's definitely, it was true for me and true for some other people that I care about as well. So
That's great insight. Absolutely. And
Thanks,
like,
Matt.
certainly not the first person I've I've heard make those decisions down the line, and good on you for doing it. I see Mr. Statham has his hand up.
I just wanted to, before Mr. Statham does speak, I just wanted to thank Matt for that, and kind of to reiterate, yeah, you have to choose your battles, right? You can be in it for the long term, or you can burn yourself out real quick trying to fight the battle right now. So yeah, survival of yourself, not necessarily the fittest. Right?
Yeah. Kevin, go ahead.
Okay, no one else has mentioned this. I found that social media is just a horrible place to go if you start getting drawn into comments. And I was a couple months ago, I got sucked right in, and I was just becoming miserable. And a friend made a comment, which of course I took offense to. But instead of just commenting to him, I sent him a text and I went, "Really? That's the way you respond? How about going, 'Hey, Kevin, are you okay? You don't seem to be your normal self.'" And just from not attacking him, but complaining to him, I talked myself out. And I just realized it's like, just don't even read comments anymore. It's just, it can just draw you in and be really bad for your brain. And one of the things I have been doing since COVID started, people who know me might know I'm also a photographer, and I've been doing concert photos for like over 30 years. So I've got photos from thousands of shows. So every day I pick a show that happened on that date, and I'll post a photo on Facebook, and it's called "On This Day." And then if I have memories about that show, it's like just looking back as being really healthy and a fun thing to do. And I'll like talk, like today, you should check out today's, Dawn. It's about safety. You'll really, yeah, it's an event that happened out at UCFV years ago, a Swollen Members concert where they were using perimeter fencing as the barricade. It was ridiculous. There's pictures. But I do things like that. And then other people started joining in and sharing their memories. And it's turned into this really positive thing. And now I get people like sending me messages going, "Thank you for doing this every day. I don't know how you're managing to do it, but it's great. I love seeing that post every day." So that's what's saving me from just sinking into the social media thing. And if anybody wants to find me on Facebook and just follow me or whatever, and then you can see the posts every day. I am hell-bent on continuing to do this daily. It's been 7 months now almost. I've got enough photos to go for a few years, so I'll keep going as long as we can't be working.
Yeah, I've been following Kevin. It's great. And there's some moments where it's like I totally forgot about that show or that event, and it's super fun. Yeah, and thank you for doing that. It's been fun to watch, and some of the comments from other people has been really fabulous. There's been a couple occasions where we didn't even know people were on the same show together. Right? We're like, I remember that show, and they're like, wait, you were on that show? And it starts a whole dialogue with people that you haven't even talked to. So really cool. Thank you for doing that. It's been really good. It's been super fun to watch. Yeah. What was I was gonna riff off that on something. I can't remember what it was. Oh, I know, the whole social media thing. So Netflix has that documentary out right now, The Social Problem, I think it's called. Yeah. Funny story. My son watched it. He was outraged. He couldn't believe it. And I said, "Are you still going to take your phone to your bedroom tonight?" Yeah. And like, so it's, you leave the phone in the living room. That's an interesting one. If you guys haven't watched that, yeah, terrifying. It was really interesting, but an interesting, The Social Dilemma. Thank you. Yeah, very, very interesting. Yeah, take a look at that. It's pretty telling piece for sure. Who else has got a story they want to share or experience? Anybody? Jennifer, yeah, go ahead.
Hey everybody. Yeah, I just want to touch base on the social media aspect. I work primarily in the electronic music dance scene, specifically with large-scale festivals. And a couple months into the pandemic, online there was a ton of women who came forward who experienced abuse from people who are in power, either from DJs or producers. And it kind of rocked our whole community online, and it spread out like a spider web. I know for myself personally, being a woman who has experienced abuse of power, I've witnessed it, you know, and tried to call it out or report it. It was very crushing. But instead of holding on to that feeling of, you know, feeling hopeless and kind of like despair, I really threw myself into online like education, taking workshops, spreading the news of online workshops that help people to build policy, help people to understand consent, help people to understand different power dynamics that exist within organizations, as well as, you know, sending people information that they didn't even know that they're protected, you know, by WorkSafe BC, just because they're new to the industry, or they just didn't think that they had those resources there. So it was something that was really negative and very dark, but a lot of good came from it. And yeah, it really helped. But yeah, you have to remember to take breaks from social media when things like that are happening, just so you can kind of sit with it and process it, so it doesn't come out or like affect your home life. It's definitely important to feel those feelings, but, you know, try to work through them and find a positive thing that you can do. And if it's not positive, you know, reach out to people, reach out to your network to get that help. I can also say that, you know, picking up the phone and calling people has been great instead of just texting people. Again, this whole week of workshops has been fantastic. I've spread it to all the organizations that I work with, and I know a ton of people have that tuned in to watch them through Facebook Live or through the Zoom. So I think having, you know, free or by donation sliding scale things like this, where people can further their education if they're not working, if they are sitting at home, something that's positive where they can learn something, is super important. So I'm very grateful for that.
Thanks very much, Jennifer. Yeah, I love the phoning bit. I was gonna off the last conversation, that whole question about asking how people are. I've started to reply less, call more. So when something gets, as soon as somebody posts something up that could be, give them a phone call instead of just replying via Teams or Slack or text. That phone call can make, when we talk about, we'll get into that a little bit later, but that can be a really key intervention point for somebody, is just a simple phone call. I see a hand up from Janet Sellery, and before I give her the floor, just so you know, Janet is from Ontario, and she is the one of my favoriteest people on the planet and a safety expert, and she speaks so well to all of these topics. Thank you so much for joining us, Janet.
Sorry, still trying to find my mute button after all these months. So all I wanted to say was, yeah, I do a newsletter, a health and safety newsletter, which speaks to arts, entertainment, live events, things that I've found. And I had delayed it, not intentionally, but the last one I sent out was in June. And I kept sort of thinking, oh, I'll just wait for this guideline to come out and then I'll send it out. Anyway, so months go by. I finally sent one out last week. And I did include some information about mental health, particularly some information about how to join this event this week. And I had several replies, and it was really interesting. I had a friend in New York who sent me a message and said, you know, I was reading your newsletter, there's a lot of good info, but you know, you seem a bit sad. And I was really gobsmacked because it's true. There have been some really hard things going on lately. Things that, you know, when family members pass away, of course, it's a sad time. But the idea that someone would read that from between the lines of a newsletter and then take the time to send me an email and check in, I thought, 5 years, 10 years ago, would that have happened? Would we have felt comfortable enough with each other to sort of to ask that question? And I thought that was really, really kind and really, really wonderful. And I also did have replies from people saying, thank you for keeping the links about mental health coming. Because sometimes, you know, we see them, they go by, we don't need them, but, you know, a couple of weeks later, it's different. And it's good to have that stuff in front of us for when the moment is right to participate and to take advantage. So I'm really glad about the focus that Actsafe is taking and keeping this in view, and for all the people who are joining in the conversation and sharing what is very personal, but also what is really helpful. Because if we don't hear that from people who are going through it, it's not the same. So thank you for that, all of you.
And thanks for that newsletter. It was great, Janet. I really enjoyed it. I thought there was, yeah, there's been some moments for me recently that I've had the same thing happen. People have called me directly to see if I'm okay. Those of you who follow me on Facebook, I posted some pictures during the Light Up event, and I posted 2 in particular where I held up the little sign that sort of told my story. And even my daughter was like, Dad, you look upset. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, I am. Yeah, this is really hard. This is, and I can't speak for Anand and the rest of the Actsafe team specifically, but I know that this has been really hard for me listening to all the stories. And I know Anand is certainly getting many calls like I am, where people are just, they're lost. They're looking for direction. They're not only are they clients of Actsafe, they're also colleagues that we've worked with. So there is an emotional toll on multiple levels of management. As you deal with your volunteers, as you deal with your outside contractors, it can be people that you normally would employ to do marketing stuff, and you lose that contact. So yeah, reach out, call people, ask them how they're doing. And on the flip side of that, be honest with them, right? Let them know how you're doing, what the struggles are, and share some stories. And it can be a really, really powerful tool. I mean, I'll say it again, I've been so incredibly lucky that my clients from all across the province have been in touch through various ways. So I've kind of been able to see how people are doing. And I'll tell you, as an anecdotal piece, our colleagues in rural areas are having a hard time. You know, Prince George, Fort St. John, there are people out there that don't have the same core group of people to lean on. So been trying to help fill that void a little bit with conversation. So reach out to them, talk to them, see how they're doing, try to include them in stuff that's going on. Anybody else want to share? See any hands up at the moment? Jackie, please. And Jackie, by the way, helped organize this whole trip here to Victoria. Thank you so much for your help and your time. It's been wonderful.
Well, it's our pleasure. Thanks for being here. Is my mic working?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, great. So I noticed that Mr. Ben Burrow was on this call today. So I thought I would just mention just a bit of a positive. Ben and I both had the unique experience in the last 2 weeks. The Canadian College of Performing Arts has started their school year. And obviously everything is different this year, but they staggered the start. The Company C, which is the studio ensemble of the third year students, they're in their second week now. The year 2 students started their first week on Monday, and the year 1 students start next Monday. Ben and I both had the opportunity to go in and do our workshops with the third year students. So I had 2 nights of teaching the stage management workshop with 13 third year babies. And then Ben was in this week with them. And I managed to get through the 2 days of workshop without crying. I got choked a couple of times, but managed to keep the tears suppressed. But when I met with the 7 stage management and assistant stage management students on Friday, yeah, no, I lost it. I felt really vulnerable in that moment to be sharing those kinds of feelings with students, but I could not help myself. I made a point of just saying to them, I really hope you can appreciate the experience you're about to have, the fact that you get to sit at a production table next to a director, physically distanced, over the next few weeks and be part of a process right now, which is the thing that we are all craving. And I said, every stage manager in my world right now is not working. So I said, I really hope I said, this is going to be hard. This is going to be hard. It's going to be hard work. You're going to be tired. You're going to wonder why you chose stage management, but I need you to appreciate every moment of the next few weeks because the rest of us are just craving that. And so, yeah, so it was hard not to get a little weepy with them because I needed them to understand the privileged place that they were in terms of process and being in the room and watching art happen. So it was kind of great and kind of gut-wrenching at the same time. I don't know if Ben's lighting workshop was quite as emotional. I'd have to let Ben speak to that. But
he just put in the chat that he didn't make it 2 hours. So it's not the first time I've heard that. There's yeah, it's hard. Thank you for sharing that. That's a big thing. I mean, I have to tell you all, I'm super excited to be on the stage here at the MAC right now, knowing that in just a little while we're going to have an in-person class for performing arts safety awareness, even though it's only 8 people. That's, for me, that's a huge piece of what I do and what we've built here at Actsafe. So this is a form of therapy for me, being able to contact people and do this work. So I'm a little emotional today because it's super exciting that we're going to get to do this stuff.
I'm excited. I get 3 hours with them on Saturday to build their books for their first show, and I can't wait to build minis and photocopy and so yeah, as sad as that sounds, I'm super excited to my 3 hours with 3 students and a photocopier on Saturday. So
right, yeah, take it all. Thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. Manu has his hand up.
Yeah, that's as Don was telling that we all are. He's so happy being in the theater today, right? So we were just before we started this webinar, we were also thinking that we are not going to use our virtual backgrounds today. We are so happy to be in our place, like at the workspace. Like I'm in my office, Anand is in his office, Don is where he loves to be there, and Jennifer is in her office. And we were like, no, we don't want to use virtual background. We are so happy to be back. So it's makes such a difference to even be there and see your colleagues, meet your colleagues physically and talk to them. It's such a huge thing. So yeah, I just wanted to share that point of what Don was talking about.
Krista Pavane.
I just want to put something out to the group about coming back to the office. A lot of our fellow staff members, especially people who are sort of outside of the tech departments, spent the last 6 months working from home, and they are just sort of coming back into our venues. And I'm seeing a lot of them bringing in a lot of anxiety about like being around people again and being in the space. Is anybody else experiencing that, and how are you making your teammates comfortable?
Wow. Great question. Fabulous question. Anybody want to weigh in on that? I'll tell you right now, it could be a little awkward. The last couple of days, I've now done 2 days in the office with other Actsafe team members, and there's always this weird moment when you first see somebody. It's like, okay, how comfortable are we? Is this a place where we need our masks on, or is this a safe space? Will and I had about a half-hour debate over whether or not we should make coffee. It's how do you approach that stuff? For me right now, it's ask. It's ask the question. Are you okay with this? Are you okay with that? Can I come in your office? That's a lot of the communication piece, because as everybody knows, you put these plans together and then you're like, oh, we didn't talk about the rechargeable batteries. Like, we all have to handle the rechargeable batteries. Okay, we have to have a talk about that. Yeah, great point, Krista. There's lots of little things that you have to, and it changes people's relationships. I'm a hugger. I want to hug everybody. So I have to, you'll see me sometimes put my hands in my pocket, right? And that's probably why, because I'm trying to resist the urge to give somebody a hug, right? So those are, and ask the questions. Yeah. Yeah, right. And I do this all the time. I hug my screen when I see the people that I love. So, but that's a thing. You got to ask those questions, right? Even elbow bumps. Are you comfortable with that? Right. Asking those questions. I'm just catching up on the chat too. Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Anybody else have experiences with that at the moment? Reintroducing yourself to your colleagues in the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, I actually just found out early this morning that Electric Love, we received a grant. So we're going to be returning to our office to produce monthly live streams. And we've been, looking over all the documents that we need to have for protocol that's in place. That was a huge question for us. What's it actually going to be like when we're physically back in the office? What's that going to look like? How are we going to, communicate with each other? Thankfully, I have a team that, we share lots and it's super easy, but it's definitely going to be, you're going to have that weird moment where, yeah, you want to go in for a hug or you want to get close to each other, but you just can't. So I like hearing that I'm not alone in that feeling of just that uneasiness of not knowing exactly how it's going to go. I know once we get down our flow and have all of our boundaries set in place and we're able to talk with each other, then it'll be great. But I can't wait for the moment to walk through the office door and just be inside the office again. I've been dreaming about it since February. Yeah,
Lots of people have been. I see there's a comment from Janelle about, as a non-hugger, that's a big fear of returning to normal. Good point. And actually, there was a really interesting piece on LinkedIn recently, and I haven't shared it with the team, but it was about consent, and that consent isn't just about physical relationships or sexual contact or intimacy. There's all these other questions. Like, there are a lot of people, and I've had to learn this one the hard way. There are people that are uncomfortable with hugging. So it's okay if I give you a hug, right? Those are questions we should also be asking, even outside of COVID. And it's like, right, there's different levels of comfort with all sorts of interactions. Some people aren't comfortable shaking hands for multiple reasons, right? So how do you read those signs? Do you ask outright? What is what are those bits and pieces? And I love that point. Thank you for bringing that up, because COVID has put one set of parameters on that, but there's also the general social acceptance of those things. Not everybody's comfortable with it, and we forget that sometimes, right? Fist pumps, high fives, all those things, they maybe mean different things to different people. So thanks for bringing that up. That's a really good point. I see Kevin Statham's got his hand up.
Yeah, I work, my theater's connected to the Langley Fine Arts School. So the kids coming back has been interesting. It's a lot quieter because the kids in the hallways have masks on and they aren't like running around hugging each other and giving high fives. And so it's been quieter in that regard. But when it comes, these kids want to get on stage and perform. That's what they, that's why they're here. And that still exists. Like, they really want to do that, and they will get to do that safely, following protocols. But you can see it's good. It's great to have them back, and you can see that they're trying to follow all the guidelines, and it's been really good. But it's just weird for the staff because it is so much quieter. Because we have we didn't fit into that 2-day-a-week sort of system, and or the 2 classes at a time. That just doesn't work for an arts education. So we have, most of our kids are here. The grade 8s are here every day. Grade 9 and up, they're here 3 days a week. So it just cuts down the number of kids, but the quietness is taking some getting used to, because this place is usually so noisy all the time.
I've been there. It's got a constant din about it all the time.
Yeah, but it's an awesome sound.
I know. Yeah, I love it, right? It's art at work all the time.
Yeah, but for those kids, the arts kids, you know, they're still engaged and wanting to do what they're going to do, which is great to see.
Yeah, I noticed Jennifer just put a link into Good Night Out of Vancouver. Thanks for that. We've worked with them at every conference, every opportunity we can. When you talk about that consent piece, they've got a course they do. They've got some resources, absolutely fabulous. They'll come to you and do training. They're amazing, and I absolutely encourage you to go talk to them and have those conversations with them. They'll give you some great guidance. Anybody else? Thank you for that, Kevin. The schools, I'll share a little story. I had a friend of mine contact me recently about some difficulties she was having with a group she was working with. And they had this great plan and they were putting everything in place. But the big struggle she had was they were setting up live streams for dances. And the biggest problem they had was the dancers haven't seen each other in 4 months. 5 months, and they came into the room and they had the talk, they had the paperwork, they knew what was supposed to happen. They couldn't help themselves. They were hugging each other and they're sitting with their arms around each other, you know, and she had to actually stop them and go to separate them. No, you can't do that anymore. She physically had to separate them and then put like their names on seats in the theater so they would always go back to the same spot. It was pretty funny. And it was a struggle for her too, because she knows them all. She's worked with them all her whole career. But it was like, you have to, in some cases, she has to stop them fully and go, no, guys, we're not kidding about this. You have to not interact in that way right now. Yeah, and of course, the target keeps moving as we learn more about this pandemic and the virus. We're learning more about how close we can be, who we can be close with, and following those things. So on top of all this, we have a moving target, right? So it keeps changing. So everybody's like, ugh. But yeah, so that physical intimacy thing is super interesting. I miss hugging and I miss shaking hands for sure. I won't lie about that one. Anybody else got anything? We're at 1 hour. We'll certainly keep going. Manu.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the mental health side of the things again, to talk about, to say that as a leader sometimes, or anybody in that kind of supervisory situations, and you need to take decisions, right? Like you need to make some decisions, plans, COVID return to work plans, and like being inclusive of everything and making sure that it also works. It doesn't affect the mental health of the teammates and everything. How difficult it sometimes is on the mental health of that person too. And for example, I'm saying that it's like even for us to say 2 days in a week, is it the right decision or not? Is it the good way or not? Does it work or not? It was a tough thing on my mental health to start with. But again, it's being out there and talking about this and saying that, hey, this is something I'm trying it out. Maybe this may work out or not. Yes, the cases are rising, but maybe we may have to go back to our work from home situation. But who is ready to join? Who is ready to come back? Get back. I think talking and being open. Like yesterday, at the end of the day, I just we use Teams, Microsoft Teams, to chat, and I said, tired and overwhelmed. Sorry, guys, I'm leaving now. Like, sorry, signing off. Sometimes it's being honest to yourself also helps out a lot. So I think that will help out as like talk, be open, be honest, and what you're trying. I think that would be great.
Krista?
Oh man, Manu, I am totally with you. This has been just like, I'm sort of the key person in my venue who has had to put together our safety plan and all of the protocols around it. And it's a lot to carry when you go, this is not a matter of like picking the wrong gel color, right? And then watching a show going, oh, that looks like crap the whole time. This is not that. This is something where you literally have people's lives in your hands. And I'm not trained for this. I've done a PhD in anything. And so the idea that you've been handed the task of coming up with a way to keep people safe with a virus you can't see, like, it's not like it shows up purple under black light or something that you go, oh great, I can clean that. There's none of that. And you're right, it's a moving target. So you go, okay, well, we'll put this in place, and then you find out, oh no, it's not far enough, or it's not clean enough, or it's not whatever. Try feeling like you are holding people's lives in your hands by making these decisions is just like, it is crushing. It can be super crushing and terrifying, because if everyone's relying on you, they're looking at, well, you said we could do this, and then so-and-so got sick. You're like, oh no, right? You're going to carry that with you the whole time. It's hugely stressful.
Yeah, it sure is. And to your point, Krista, and Anand, I don't know if you can speak to this on the motion picture side. There are so many people in these positions now that have worked their way up through the industry into a management position where they're now responsible for these decisions. And how much training have they ever had on any of this stuff? I haven't had much, right? I've had a lot more since I started at Actsafe. But when I was at the Massey, I learned it all from my colleagues and from my managers but I didn't have formal training. And there's a lot of people in Krista's position that are calling me, and I don't know if you're getting the same thing on the motion picture side, but people who are clearly, they don't have the training and they're uncomfortable, they're looking for guidance. I don't know, that on your side?
Yeah. For sure. And I had a conversation with somebody yesterday about the whole new COVID-19 safety officer and what kind of training do they have, and how relevant is it, and the anxieties around that person being in charge of a safety plan for an organization, and how much confidence we have in that type of person. And yeah, back when I was in the industry, there was no training, so no safety training available for supervisors or for workers even to take. When I started, it was a set etiquette course. Don't sit in the director's chair and turn your microphone or your radio off when we're rolling, and traffic control, and that was it. You're ready for work in the film industry. Nothing about safety, nothing about rights and responsibilities. So I think as an industry, when it comes to safety, we've come a long way in the training that's offered now, and the amount of people that are taking it, and that kind of helps with the mental health aspect as well, in that those people now understand when they're asked to do something that is unsafe, that will play on their mental health. They know how to handle it better than when I was back starting my career. It was, suck it up, pay your dues, and move forward. And that's definitely not the information or not the message anymore, which is, a good thing to see. For sure. But when it comes to the COVID-19 environment, training wise, I'm a little concerned with who's out there being a COVID-19 officer. If they have just the one type of training but don't have the OHS training. Yeah, and then asking that person to come up with a plan. That's kind of troubling to me.
It's a gap for sure, right? Like Janet's just posted a comment there. Jen, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. So we're dealing with a big wide range of where people are on their health and safety journey. Some people have been dealing with organizations like Actsafe for a few years, maybe some a couple of decades, but there are also lots of organizations who are just coming to health and safety right now. And it's so much harder because they don't have a context for it. For people who have sort of at least the bare bones of a health and safety program, who are doing risk assessment, who are doing some training, they can sort of slot this in. This is another hazard. It's a new hazard. It's a hard hazard. it's one that the info is changing as we go. But when you have that sort of framework, it's easier. So what I'm hoping we're going to see is that during this time where we really can't do quite as much, that people will go back to the health and safety basics, and that they will start to put the plans in place for their organization, of which COVID-19 planning is a piece. But yeah, it's hard, you know, when you're talking about rights and responsibilities and people don't have even the basics. It's like, okay, we can talk about work refusal, but first you got to understand what rights and responsibilities are and where you find that.
Yeah,
And
thank you for bringing that up. And to tie that back into the mental health piece of this, if you're at that point where you're learning this and you're doing, put mental health in that program. And it needs to be in there somewhere, and it actually needs to be in several places. And like Janet says, there's baby steps. It's getting them introduced to a program, but having it as part of your program is huge, and it will go a long way down the road once you have it in place and have it working. So I'm glad you brought that up, because they're all kind of part and parcel. One of the how do I put this? One of the bright spots in this whole nightmare has been that point Janet just made. People are actually engaging with us in a more meaningful way for the first time. Lots of groups have come to us now. We've talked, they may have, you know, taken a piece of paper from us or something, but now they're starting to understand the role we play and how important it is in their operation, whether it's a single person operation or a 28-person operation. They're coming to their aha moment on safety, which is for me one of the pleasant byproducts of this. It also means Will and I are pulling our hair out trying to keep up with everything, but that's okay. We were kind of prepared for that, and we've kind of been armoring ourselves for that process. Janet.
Sorry, me again. We're at this point in history where health and safety is going to make the difference between theater and live events being viable. There has never been a more important time to get on this, and this is the one hazard in which mental health is inexplicably tied. So we cannot bring back our audiences until we take care of our workers and our volunteers and our artists. So if you need anything to set fire under your butt to get moving on this, I think, you know, our industry and the people we love are at stake here. It's worth it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It's a pivotal moment for us, for sure. Okay, so we've got about 20 minutes left. What I'd love to know in this, the other piece that Anand and I were talking about is, what are things that we can do? What are some ideas we can do to help promote, support, and move the conversation forward on mental health and awareness in our industry? Consider this kind of a brainstorming session. There's no right or wrong answers here. There's all sorts of things we can do. You've got you know, a major part of the Actsafe team here in the window at the moment. What can we do both as Actsafe and as an industry to support mental health? Don't everybody yell at once. Anand's like, hold me down.
Just Jennifer here. More workshops like this are great. The more educational content. I know for somebody like me who has an anxious brain, and when I feel like, oh, I feel helpless, I don't know what to do, when I'm able to consume more content that will help me put plans in place and how to plan for the future, it's super helpful, and also to the social aspect of it.
Excellent. Note taken. What else we got? Has anybody used any of the online options like the chat rooms? Oh my, I'm going to forget the name of it. The Backstage Access people from ESTA have a service where you can go on and log on, and it's a blog type app that you can go on and talk to different people. I've been on that it's called iRelate is the app. I've been on it for about 5 months. It's interesting. Is that something that would be useful? The only problem with iRelate is it's very US centric. So I think there's only about 1,200 Canadians in it at the moment. and there's like close to 40,000 American industry people using it. So that's something that would be interesting. No, Anand's gonna, yeah.
I think
So
anything
we'll talk.
would be anything would be interesting, and anything would be helpful. I think it just depends on how invested you are in it, and what you can take away from it. And even though it's something that might be U.S. centric, I don't think definitely don't discount it. Take a look. It might work for you. It might not work for you. Right.
Yeah, I've been using it. It's been pretty good, actually. The weird part is once people figured out who I was, and that I worked for Actsafe, because I didn't use my real, because you can put in an anonymous name. So I used one of my alter egos in that. But within about a month, people figured out, wait a minute, I know who you are. So then they started pinpointing me for questions. I haven't changed my handle to avoid that, but so it's been pretty interesting. It's changed the conversation for me, so I'm not participating as much as an individual now, is that I'm participating more as a safety person. I'm fine with that, but for other people that may be a bit of a struggle. So that might be something that we could look into, maybe as an addition to one of our app or something else. Krista, please share.
I just want to say that the more material that's out there, the more stuff that pops up in my Facebook feed, the more stuff that just like this that comes out. I've been kind of like keeping a buffer on how much stuff I get involved in. There's only so much my brain can handle, and so just seeing what other people are doing has been really helpful. So the more we can share, the more people who are willing to share. There are lots of us who are hiding out in the corner that are feeding off of that. We may not be like right here in the meetings all the time. We might not be, actively hosting workshops and attending things, but we are watching, and it is helping.
And I will take this moment to point out and thank Krista, because she's been one of the biggest contributors to What Would Dawn Do. And not only that, she has shared so much of her information that's happened in her venue. It's been outstanding. And that's one of the things that's really worked about this, is people sharing. And again, going back to the mental health discussion, it's open the conversation, talk about it, get it out there. It really does help. I mean, I don't know, I think compared to 10 years ago, the discussions around mental health in our workplace is night and day. Like night and day from where I started in the industry. Maybe you can speak to your experience, but for me, it's night and day compared to where we were 10 years ago.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. It was never talked about in the late 90s, early 2000s in the industry. There was no support. There wasn't even a big push for the EAPs from the unions. That's all changed a lot, and I'm not too sure how many of you have accessed the Call Time Mental Health webpage, but I know, Jen, we posted a video that was produced, I don't know, 3 years ago now, when Call Time first launched. If you haven't seen this video, have a box of tissues handy and watch this video, because it will open up your eyes as to how deep this issue goes into the industry, and how many people it actually affects, and how it affects people. And you can look at certain things. And I remember the last big push was the Deadpool incident, and how many people, you might not have heard it, but there were a couple of suicides after that particular incident. I think within the year of that incident occurring, that can be traced back to the first people on site to help that performer, and seeing what that performer what had happened to that performer, and how they didn't have the support to deal with it, and what ended up happening to them. So I mean, it's come a long ways, but there's a long way to go for sure.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Fabulous segue, because Call Time Mental Health has been a resource that Anand and I have been using since its inception. It is built by the motion picture industry with unions and guilds on their side, but they have openly said, share it with all of your people. If you need resources, use it. And that goes for the live event side. So I encourage everybody to go take a look at it, watch that video. Got me right there because two of the people in that video are people I have worked with over the years that I know fairly well. And it was just like, wow. Although I would say, Anand, I'd love to see us make one for live events. I think that would also be we could make a very poignant piece there as well. Also touches on one of the things that I was going to touch on earlier, which is suicide. So that particular incident with Deadpool is a really good example of us not talking about it, because most people don't know that those suicides happened. They don't know under the circumstances under which it happened, which for those of us who were kind of in the thick of it when it all went down was really quite disturbing and disheartening. So those are things that's the untold side of these actions and these things that are going down. One of the things that I don't know if I'm thankful for or worried about, I don't know how many people have succumbed to that during this pandemic. I know early on there were a couple on our side of the fence early on. I don't know what those numbers look like, but I'm a little bit afraid to find out. But to tie it back in, that's where I was mentioning those phone calls can be the difference, right? That phone call, phoning somebody just to go, how are you, right? You want to play Scrabble online? That can be the difference for somebody. And I speak to that from a fair well of experience. In my personal life, I've lost 7 people to suicide in the last 5 years. And some of those were industry related, some of them weren't. So for me, that's a really key point, but it's that contact point. It's calling that person and having that interaction. Some of us are better equipped for dealing with the bad news than others. So just keep that in mind. If you're calling people, you may not get a great answer on the other end of that phone. So I've done a little bit of training around that over the last few years. And there are different ways to do that. Call Time Mental Health is a great place to go. They have some resources that will teach you how to talk to people who are distraught and help and ask the right questions. So those are really important pieces to that puzzle.
Yeah, and if you have an opportunity, there will be videos available of the past sessions, and the one that Call Time Mental Health delivered on Tuesday was absolutely fabulous. Take a look at that one once it's on the website or on our YouTube page, because a lot of things that they talked about in that session will help you in, I wouldn't say counseling, but finding out how you can help your fellow coworkers, your family, your friends, dealing with any mental health issues that they might be going through, and it might provide some insight for you to recognize what mental health issues you're going through. It was a really great session. One that and every time they present something, whether it's at our conference or in the industry, and I attend, I always take something away from it. So you look out for that one. And as Jen put in the chat, they are offering a second session tomorrow afternoon. Space is still available for that. Yeah, sign up for that one, because you'll come away with valuable information.
Okay, we're getting down to our last 10 minutes. I just want to, Jennifer Harkness wanted to add to that. So Jennifer, go ahead.
Oh, you already touched base on it. But the other point I was just going to say is if you are reaching out to people, if you are sending them text messages, make sure that it's a no pressure text message. You could even say something like, even if you're not feeling well, just send me back an emoji so I know that you got this. Contact me whenever you're feeling good, or I'm going to check back in with you in a couple of days. I hope you don't mind. That can really help take some pressure off, especially if somebody's feeling depressed. Sometimes they go into an avoidance type behavior. So having those no pressure kind of text messages can really help out.
That's a really good point. I have a very close friend of mine who has struggled for the last couple of years. We check in almost daily now, and it's a bit of a joke, but it's just for fun. But it's basically emojis back and forth. I know he's alive. He knows I'm watching out for him, but it's just this interesting back and forth, very low key, but it's a nice way to set that up. Thank you for that. Awesome. Call Time Mental Health, absolutely. We've got just a few minutes left, so I wanted to touch base on we have another session this afternoon. Correct? Yes, we have another session this afternoon. We have 2 tomorrow. And really quickly, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, Manu. Manu's got a session tomorrow. What are you doing? Tell them about what's going on and get them to sign up.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, yeah, tomorrow my topic is creating a psychologically healthy and safe workplace. Not just because it's COVID, but it should be part of the health and safety, as Janet was talking about that too, right, earlier. So yeah, so we're going to talk about what should organizations look out for, what are the 13 psychosocial factors that everybody should have should be keeping an eye on, because they may affect you positively or negatively. And then, yeah, so we're going to focus on them. So I look forward to presenting at tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Excellent. And we'll post up a link, or you can go to the Actsafe Injury Prevention website link on the page, and you can register for that anytime. And again, tomorrow afternoon, we have Call Time Mental Health, again, is doing a session. If you thought this was good, or you thought the other one was worthwhile, go. It's they do great work for us. So that's also happening tomorrow. The other thing that I'll just bring up, because as part of the usual What Would Dawn Do thing, we have the conference coming up as well in February. So we're going to be looking for your ideas and content. I imagine this will be one of the topics that we'll be covering on some level, though we're just getting the ball rolling on programming. So, you know, to your point, Jennifer, about more of this stuff, and Krista, more offerings. Yeah. Certainly hearing that loud and clear. So I'm sure we will have, I think we've covered it. Mental health's been part of every conference we've done thus far on varying levels. And it's been really, for me, a hugely positive experience. So we'll certainly be continuing down that road. What have we got? 6 minutes left. Any final thoughts? Anybody want to throw anything else out there before we wrap this up today?
I just want to point people to the website and the activities we have. And we might be aware of all of the webinars that we are all participating in, but we do have a couple of activities. There's a mental health quiz, on a fact or fiction quiz on the website. And if you do participate in that, you will be entered into a draw of some sorts, a draw for something. We don't know what that is yet, but it'll be our everlasting love as part of it. And your shirt, sure, yeah. I was going to wear my loud shirt, but every time I wear it, you make fun of me, tell me to turn it down. So I thought, no, I wore this one instead, which is almost as loud. Anywho, that's one activity. And then the one that's really interesting, that I find interesting, is the elephant in the room activity on our website, where you can put in, we ask you the question, what keeps you from speaking about mental health issues? What is your elephant in the room? And you respond there, and it basically builds a word cloud online, so you can see what other people have put in, and you can add your voice to that. And the idea is, with that information, we can start to develop resources and information on how to tackle the elephant in the room. So there you go, a couple of things.
That's very, very cool. I'm really interested to see how that all comes out, like what the results are from that. I'm certain we're going to see some threads as well.
Yeah, and it's real time. So you push send, and it'll instantaneously update on our website. So you can actually enter something, and you can watch your response appear. Yeah. Less is more as well with the elephant in the room, because it takes keywords. So one-word answers are best.
Excellent. And
Jen put the link in the chat, so if you want to.
I also just wanted to point out, Jennifer did put a little comment in there about checking on those people that are the happy people and making sure that they're also safe. I want to point out that Jennifer is one of my happy people and one of my rays of sunshine, and has been a huge support for me and the team through this whole thing, as well as, I have to say, the Actsafe team in general are our family. So, you know, keep those people close. Make sure that you talk to them openly and honestly. Get virtual hugs. Yeah, I don't think any of us would be in the position to do the work we're doing right now if our team wasn't supporting each other as well as we do. And that spreads out to many of you. A lot of you, we've had conversations about how supportive everybody's been through What Would Dawn Do, and through the other sessions that we've done. It's been fabulous. So it's, again, a little ray of sunshine in this whole nightmare has been this group of people that we've been working with. So we got a couple minutes left. Anybody else want to throw anything out there before we wrap up? Just a reminder, next week we're going back to our regular time slot, a Wednesday at 10 a.m. And we will have Mr. Eric Stewart joining us from Gentian Events, and he'll be talking about what's going on in the UK. We may get a gruesome blow-by-blow of his knee replacement surgery, but it will be good to see him. And he does have some interesting information for us, because there's been a lot of things going on in the background in the UK that are going to affect us here. A lot of the work they're doing there is going to kind of translate to North America. And it'll be really interesting to get his take on that stuff as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. Thank you, Anand, for helping me run this today. Manu, for your input. Jen, for your support. And everybody for coming. This has been a really good session. I really love sharing this stuff with you guys. And again, virtual hugs to everybody. And I hope to see you all again really soon. Thank you for coming, and miss you all. All right, so stay safe, stay inspired, and hopefully we see you all next week. And again, thanks to the Royal McPherson Society for putting us up, and Jackie and Tom Heemskirk for hosting us, because I always feel like I'm coming home when I'm here at their venue. So love you all. We'll see you all soon.
Yes, thanks, Don, and thanks everyone who joined so far. And I hope you enjoyed. And this webinar is recorded and will be on our website. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Manu.